They say the pines in Ellison Hollow whisper at night, not with the wind, but with the secrets of the dead. The way the branches creak isn't like any other wood in Alabama. It's a dragging sound, like the long train of a burial shroud snagging on bark. There's always fog, even in August, when the rest of the South sweats under sun like a preacher's glare. But Ellison Hollow stays gray and still, as if even the light fears what waits beneath those trees. I first came to the Ellison estate as a researcher, a folklorist digging through Southern myth and old ghost stories. It was late October when I drove through Clark County, windows down, the smell of wet leaves and chimney smoke in the air. Locals had warned me not to go. They whispered in that low, hesitant way folks do when they want you to ignore them, but hope you won't. "Ain't nothing good out that way," said one old man at a filling station in Grove Hill. "Place eats girls," he added, looking past me toward the dusk. I took the warning the way most city people do, with curiosity. The Ellison home rises like a specter itself, hidden behind a rusted gate half swallowed by kudzu. It's all pale columns and rotting shutters, a southern plantation house lost to time, perched on a gentle hill that dips into the hollow like a grave. Vines have strangled the porch rails. The windows are black glass, unblinking. The main drive is choked with pine needles and soft mud, and the only sound is the crunch of gravel under tires and the crows that roost in the upper limbs, watching. I parked, stepped out, and felt it, that stillness, a hush like the world holding its breath. There were no bugs, no bird song, only the distant moan of the wind through the trees, and that whispering, faint, indecipherable. It didn't feel haunted. It felt watched. The house itself had been unoccupied for nearly 50 years, but it wasn't empty. I had special permission from the County Historical Society to examine what remained inside: furniture, letters, portraits, artifacts. The Ellisons had once been one of the wealthiest families in Alabama, their fortune made in cotton, their legacy wrapped in rumor. The last living Ellison had vanished in 1905, a 16-year-old girl named Abigail. She was the seventh daughter to disappear, without explanation, the seventh to vanish on the night of her 16th birthday. The townsfolk stopped asking questions after that. The lock on the front door was brittle, though it's swollen from rain. When I forced it open, a wave of air hit me, thick with mildew, dust, and something older, the scent of decay and secrets. The floor groaned under my weight as I stepped into the foyer. A grand chandelier dangled from the ceiling, its crystals dulled by cobwebs. The wallpaper was a faded floral pattern, curling like burnt paper at the edges. I made my way through the parlor and into the study. That's where I found the family tree, painted onto a massive canvas above the hearth. The names were etched in delicate gold leaf, beginning with Bartholomew Ellison, born 1791, and ending with Abigail, 1889. 7 daughters, no sons. Each girl's name was accompanied by a date of birth, and a blank space where the death date should have been. I remember pausing there, pen in hand, taking notes in silence. Then I heard it, a giggle, faint, upstairs. A girl's voice light and breathless. I froze. No footsteps. No scurrying animals. Just silence. Then another whisper. Closer this time. I couldn't make out the words. Just a tone, like someone reading a lullaby from behind a closed door. I told myself it was the wind. The second floor was colder, as if the house had forgotten to trap heat after all these years. I moved slowly, flashlight in hand, past rooms lined with dusty cribs, broken rocking horses, and dolls with cracked porcelain faces. One room had a dressing table still set with brushes and perfume bottles. Another held a canopy bed, sheets turned yellow, a journal left open beside a long-dead oil lamp. The wallpaper here was different. It was a pale, almost sickly green, printed with pines. The trees bent unnaturally toward one another, forming arches that seemed to stretch deeper the longer I looked. One section of wall bulged slightly. The paper puckered like skin over a wound. I didn't touch it. That night, I set up camp in what must have once been the library. I had lanterns and a cot, notebooks spread out beside an old phonograph. I played a few scratchy records, hoping to chase the unease with noise. It didn't work. Outside, the whispering started again. It came not from the woods, but from inside the walls. My breath fogged in front of me. I felt eyes on the back of my neck. Not hate, not curiosity. Hunger. Then bare feet on the stairs. Soft, slow, deliberate, each step like a metronome, counting down something inevitable. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then it stopped, just outside the library door. I waited, heart pounding. When I finally opened the door, nothing, only footprints. Small, dusty prints of bare feet, leading from the top of the staircase to where I stood. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I found something tucked beneath my cot, a faded ribbon, pale blue, monogram with an A, the same initials stitched into Abigail Ellison's baby blanket, framed in the nursery. I left the house that day, but I couldn't leave the story, because whatever happened to those girls, whatever haunts the Ellison estate, it's still there, and now it knows my name. They tried to move on after Annabelle, to forget her like a fevered dream or a half-remembered nightmare. The Ellison name still held weight in Clark County. Bartholomew made sure of that. But beneath the surface, unease curled like smoke through the town. No one said it out loud, not yet, but fear has a way of ripening in silence. Clara Ellison was 13 when her older sister vanished. In the months that followed, she stopped speaking. No one knew why. She walked the halls barefoot, clutching a china doll that once belonged to Annabelle, and stared too long at shadows. She took to sleeping in the servants' quarters, nestled close to Mabel the cook, as her proximity to warmth and prayer might keep the dark at bay. The Ellisons were good at secrets, but the land wasn't. 3 years later, on July 4th, 1828, Clara celebrated her 16th birthday. A small party was held, quieter than Annabelle's had been. Fewer guests. No music. Bartholomew had aged 10. Years and 3. His beard had turned silver. He insisted the celebration remain indoors, windows shuttered, doors locked tight. He had become a man obsessed with numbers. He measured everything, the hours of the day, the length of candle burn, the distance between the front porch and the edge of the woods. He kept journals filled with symbols no one could read, circles and spirals and lines like those carved into old graves. That night, as the final candle sputtered out in guest bid awkward farewells, Clara retired to her room. And by morning, she too was gone. Same signs, same silence. Window wide open. No tracks in the soil. Only this time, there was no ribbon, no giggle, no footprint. Just a single handprint on the mirror above her vanity. Small, childlike, but backwards, as if pressed from the other side of the glass. Bartholomew sealed her room as he had Annabelle's. Then he vanished from public life altogether. After Clara, the rumor started to take root, not just in town, but in neighboring counties. Stories drifted like ash, that the Ellison house was cursed, that it had been built on stolen land soaked in blood, that the pines surrounding it weren't trees at all, but something older twisted into wooden shapes to hide among us. A traveling preacher came to town in 1830, claiming visions of the screaming wood and girls chained in dreams. He stood in the square of Grove Hill shouting scripture until Bartholomew rode in on horseback and struck him across the face with a riding crop. The preacher died days later of fever. No one came to collect the body. That same year, the third daughter, Eloise, turned 16. She vanished too. Her shoes were found on the windowsill, upright, as if placed there by careful hands. 3 daughters, 3 disappearances, all on their 16th birthdays. Bartholomew stopped sealing their rooms. He ordered them stripped, furniture burned, bedding buried in unmarked plots. He removed their portraits from the great hall and replaced them with paintings of trees. Always the same scene, dark woods under a crescent moon, a faint path leading deeper in. He hired new staff, kept them rotating so none stayed long enough to notice patterns. But the house kept its memories. Mirrors fogged without heat. Doors latched on their own. One maid awoke to find every window open and every curtain tied in a noose. She left that morning. Wouldn't even stay for wages. By the time the 4th daughter, Jane, reached 16 in 1835, Clark County knew better than to speak the Ellison name. Farmers crossed themselves when passing the hollow. Children were warned not to venture past the creek. Jane, perhaps emboldened by her own fear, tried to run. She made it as far as the town square, barefoot and breathless, begging the sheriff to keep her in a cell overnight. He refused, said it was a family matter. The next morning, she was gone. This time, there were 2 handprints on the mirror. The sheriff hung himself a week later. The pattern had become undeniable. The Ellison estate was no longer a home. It was a wound, a place where daughters disappeared like breath and frost. Each pulled into nothingness on the same night. They crossed into womanhood. No ransom notes. No bodies. No hope. Bartholomew grew thinner with each loss. He aged into a living ghost, hunched and yellow-eyed, pacing the upper halls by lamplight, muttering to himself. He spoke to the mirrors, sat for hours on the back porch staring at the pines, scribbling names in the dust on the floorboards. He kept the birthday secret after Jane, didn't allow guests, cut off contact with the outside world. But it didn't matter. The house knew, the woods knew, and something else did too. Some force, some presence, waited patiently beyond the veil. The 5th daughter, Lillian, vanished in 1842. Then Margaret in 1849. Each disappearance marked by that same backwards handprint, each one closer to the attic. By the time the 7th and final daughter, Abigail, neared her 16th birthday in 1905, the Ellison name had become a warning, a myth. The town spoke of the family only in hushed tones, in backrooms and beneath church eaves. Some claimed the daughters weren't dead, that they had been claimed by the land, swallowed whole by whatever slept in the hollow. Others believed they had been traded, offered up to something ancient in exchange for wealth and longevity. Bartholomew had been dead for decades by then, buried in a plot with no stone. Yet the pattern endured, because the curse wasn't just his. It was the house's, and the house had learned how to wait. September 3rd, 1849. Today is my birthday. I am 15. Mother made a peach pie, though she did not smile. No one did. Father didn't attend the supper. He hasn't come downstairs in a week. The servants say he walks the halls at night and speaks to the mirrors. I believe them. They gave me this journal as a gift. I suppose it is to keep me occupied. I shall write in it every day, so that when I turn 16, I will have a full year of memories. That is, if I turn 16 at all. They do not speak of my sisters. Not to me, not to anyone. But I remember their faces. I remember Lillian singing. I remember the way Jane braided my hair and whispered, "Don't look into the mirror after dark." I thought she was playing. I no longer think that. September 18th, 1849. The house groans now, constantly, as though something inside its walls is stretching or waking. There are cold spots in the upstairs hallway, even though the summer still lingers heavy in the air. Today, I found one of Lillian's shoes beneath the floorboard in my wardrobe. I didn't put it there. No one would admit to having touched it. It was warm. October 2nd, 1849. I have begun to dream in trees. Not of them, in them. I see through bark. I hear wind in my spine. I watch from high branches as figures move beneath me, faceless girls in white, reaching upward. Their fingers are wrong. Too long. Too many joints. When I wake, my hands are filthy, soil beneath every nail. I asked Mabel to pray with me. She said the prayers do not work here. Not anymore. October 17th, 1849. There's a mirror in the attic. I didn't know it was there. None of us did. The attic has been locked since before I was born. But last night, I heard the bell. The one at the top of the stairs. It hasn't rung since Margaret. It rang 3 times. I followed the sound. The attic door was open. The mirror is tall, reaching nearly to the rafters. Its frame is silver and carved with vines. But not vines from here. They twist in unnatural patterns. Unfamiliar flowers blooming in etchings. It doesn't reflect properly. My face looks blurred in it, as though I'm seen through rippling water. And behind me, always behind me, is a hallway of pines. Endless, moonlit. Even when I stand alone in the attic, the pines are there in the glass. Today, I cover it with a sheet. Tonight, the sheet was gone. November 5th, 1849. The journal entries are becoming difficult. I can no longer trust what is real. Yesterday, I heard Annabelle's voice coming from the dumbwaiter. She was singing a lullaby Mother used to hum. I opened it. Inside was her locket, the one buried with her. Only, she was never buried. No one was. Father says the family plot is full of stones and no bones. I think I believe him. November 29th, 1849. Something moves beneath the floorboards at night. It drags itself from room to room, always stopping beneath my bed before dawn. I tried to scream the first time, but my voice froze in my throat. I've taken to sleeping with a lamp lit, but it dims whenever the thing comes near, as if the air thickens around it. Once, I looked beneath the bed. Just once. All I saw were fingers, thin, pale, tapping rhythmically on the floorboards, as if waiting. December 25th, 1849. Christmas came hollow this year. No tree, no hymns, just candles and silence. Father gave me a new dress, white silk. He said it was for the occasion. When I asked what occasion, he looked at the wall and said, "The cycle." I asked him if I would vanish too. He didn't answer, but he wept. That frightened me more than anything. January 3rd, 1850. The mirror is whispering, not when I'm near it, only when I pretend not to listen. It says my name, slowly, softly. Once it said, "We're still here." I see them sometimes, the sisters, not as they were, but changed. Their eyes are wrong, clouded over. Their smiles stretched too wide, but they still wear their ribbons. Annabelle's violet, Clara's pink, Jane's torn green bough, crusted with soil. Lillian hums a lullaby I've never heard. Margaret, me. She stands silent, hand pressed against a glass. I think I know what she wants. February 14th, 1850. Valentine's Day. A red card appeared on my pillow this morning. No one in the house admits to leaving it. It was blank, except for a single fingerprint. Small, backwards, pressed in blood. March 1st, 1850. Mother no longer speaks. She wanders the upstairs hall at dusk, clutching the family Bible and muttering about roots in the wrong soil. I found a page torn from her prayer book tucked into the mirror's frame. On it was scrawled, "Give the 7th, then you are free." But free from what? What did Father do? March 30th, 1850. They are coming for me. Not tomorrow, not tonight, on my birthday. I see the date in dreams, etched in frost across my bedroom mirror. July 3rd, my 16th birthday. Each night it grows clearer. Each day I fade a little more. Sometimes I see them out in the woods. Not girls now, not fully, just shadows with faces too familiar to ignore. I am not afraid of them. I am afraid of what they belong to. Something deeper, something beneath the house. April 12th, 1850. I will hide this journal in the nursery, behind the false panel, the one only Jane and I knew about. If you are reading this, it means I am gone. Tell someone, tell anyone. They feed it daughters, and it's still hungry. The silver mirror in the attic. The attic was never just an attic. It was a wound, pulsing at the top of the Ellison house like an infected eye, a place where the air thickened, where even light faltered, bent around corners, flickered with a mind of its own. The steps leading up groaned not with age, but with resistance, as though each one begged you to turn back. I climbed them anyway. I had found Margaret's journal only a day before, wedged behind a loose panel in the nursery. Its pages trembled in my hands as I read, not from my fear, but from something else, some latent energy soaked into the paper, a dread that had waited decades to be seen again. Margaret spoke of the mirror, the silver frame, the backward handprints. I had to see it for myself. The attic door creaked open with a sound like bone splitting. The scent that met me was old, older than dust. It was the smell of dried flowers, rotted books, something sweet gone sour. The space beyond was cloaked in a gray light that had no source. The windows were boarded, yet the room glowed faintly, as though the walls remembered sunlight. And there it stood, the mirror, tall as a man, framed in tarnished silver that curled into patterns not found in any botanical book. The carvings resembled vines at first glance, but with too many thorns, too many open mouths. The base of the mirror rested on a plinth of stone, unlike anything else in the house. Cold, black, veined with quartz that pulsed softly when approached. It did not reflect me. Not truly. It reflected a version of me, paler, gaunter, slightly behind my movements, like an actor trying to mimic me from the other side. And behind that me, the pines. Always the pines. But these were not the trees outside the Ellison estate. These were taller, denser, wrong. Their branches twitched, as if stirred by something crawling just beneath the bark. The moon above them was frozen in a sliver, never waxing, never waning. I reached out and touched the glass. It was warm. It sighed, not like breath, but like something waking. The reflection rippled. For a moment, my face vanished, and in its place stood a girl, Margaret, her eyes wide with warning. Her mouth moved, but no sound came through. She pointed to something behind her. I leaned closer, hand still on the surface, and then I saw it, a shape between the trees. Tall, thinner than it should be, its arms stretched past the knees, fingers like whittled bone, no face, just smooth skin where features should have been. It moved with impossible grace, fast and slow at once, not walking, flowing. It didn't look at me, but I felt it notice. The mirror burned against my hand. I staggered back. The glass darkened, reflections dissolved. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over. Then the mirror spoke, not aloud, not with voice. It pushed a thought into me, like a needle slipping beneath the skin. It is not the mirror. It is the door. The mirror shimmered again. This time, I saw the hallway of the Ellison house, but in reverse. Every portrait hung backward. Every candle burned down in reverse motion. And standing in the hallway was Clara, her nightgown streaked with mud, her eyes hollow. She did not blink. Her mouth opened far too wide. From it spilled a whisper, but it didn't come from her lips. It came from my mirror. 1,000 voices speaking at once, all layered and warped. 7 for the root, 7 for the bind. 7 burn, 7 blind. My legs refused to move. I couldn't look away. In the corner of the mirror, the surface began to peel. Not crack, not shatter, but peel like skin from a fruit. Beneath it, another surface emerged, black, glossy, and endless. From that darkness, a hand pressed forward. Not Margaret's, not a child's. This hand had too many fingers, each tipped with nail curved inward, as though grown for burrowing. It left no fog on the glass, just a faint smear of ash, like soot after fire. Then another hand joined it. The mirror bulged. I ran. I stumbled down the stairs, barely able to breathe. The house felt smaller now, angrier. The walls closed in, as if trying to push me back up. I heard footsteps behind me, but when I looked, only stillness, only dust. In the library, I collapsed against the hearth, the journal still clutched in my shaking hands. I opened to Margaret's final entry. The ink had bled slightly, warped by time, but the words were still clear. It lives between reflections. The mirror is just one. Every dark surface is a mouth. Every silence, a breath held. We are not taken. We are traded. I understood then. Bartholomew had made a bargain. A pact forged in blood and shadow. 7 daughters for 7 decades of fortune. 7 lives offered for something he couldn't stop once it started. But now, the debt was older than him, older than blood, and still it expected payment. I rose slowly, every board creaking beneath me like a warning. I did not return to the attic. Not that night, but I knew I would have to, because the mirror wasn't just in the attic anymore. It was in every surface I passed. The hallway sconces, the darkened window panes, the standing water in the cellar. And behind every one of them, something was moving closer, bloodlines and bargains. The Ellison name was not always Ellison, before the columns in cotton. Before the hollow had a name, the land belonged to no one, or to something that did not recognize ownership the way men do. The first records of Bartholomew Ellison appear in a faded land deed from 1811, though some scholars argue the ink itself is older. The signature is jagged, incomplete, as if scrawled with shaking hand or unwilling fingers. The document references a parcel of land granted by patent of divine providence, a phrase that appears nowhere else in Clark County's archives. It bears a second signature, illegible, save for a symbol, an open eye flanked by roots. There's no official explanation, but old-timers in the county whisper a different story. They speak of Bartholomew not as a man, but as a penitent, a soul that fled east from some great shame, seeking land to bury his sins in. He found the hollow instead. He wasn't the first to try. They say there were bones in the soil before the Ellisons ever came, bones too long, too narrow, artifacts buried beneath the pine roots that cracked like pottery and bled sap as red as wine. Bartholomew didn't run from it. He invited it in. The journals left behind, what little remained after the fire of 1853, hint at strange practices. In his early years, Bartholomew wrote of vivid dreams, of voices whispering from beneath the floorboards, of the land calling him by his true name. He began to hold midnight masses, not in the chapel, but beneath the house, in the stone-lined cellar that no longer appears on any blueprint. There, he constructed an altar from river rock and bone. He called it the root seat. He wrote that the land could be fed, not with water or seed, but with memory, with sacrifice. He spoke of offering back what the soil gave forth. No one questioned him. Not then. His fields were always the first to bloom. His cotton whiter, thicker. His livestock born without defect. Crops in other parts of Clark County withered in drought. But Ellison Hollow thrived like Eden. Prosperity bought silence. Then came the daughters, each born healthy, each adored, and each, it is said, marked from birth. Mabel, the cook whose lineage stretches back to the original estate staff, once confessed that the girls were never baptized, that each time a reverend was summoned to bless the child, he left before the ceremony, pale and sweating, muttering about unseen company. She remembered hearing music from the nursery at night, not lullabies, not hymns, chanting, in languages no one taught her. Margaret's journal confirms it. She wrote of dreams not her own, of faces she recognized from portraits she'd never seen, of bloodlines. It became clear that the curse or pact or debt was tied not just to the land, but to the family itself, the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter, a lineage engineered over generations, not by accident, but by design. Bartholomew had arranged marriages, timed births, manipulated blood. He believed that in giving the Hollow 7 daughters, one from each decade, he could seal the bond forever, that the entity, whatever slumbers beneath the pines, would accept the tithe and leave the rest untouched. But it never stopped at 7. Each offering only bought time. The more he gave, the more it hungered, and the cost became greater. By the time Margaret was born, the family had splintered. The name Ellison was whispered like a hex. Her mother, Prudence, had attempted to flee the estate while pregnant. She was found barefoot in the fields, her nightgown torn, speaking in a voice not her own. She miscarried once before Margaret. Twins, girls. They were buried in the family plot with no names. But 2 stones remain, small and blank, side by side. In one of the few surviving pages of Bartholomew's final ledger, he scrawled a line again and again. Blood for bloom, silence for soil, daughters for dominion. He believed the house would protect itself, that it would remember who fed it. He was wrong. When he died, the air in the hollow still for a week. Not a bird, not a breath of wind. Then the whispering returned, stronger, because the bargain had never been with him. It had been with the blood, and blood remembers. Even now, centuries later, descendants of the Ellison line find themselves drawn back to the hollow. Inheritance papers appear from nowhere. Real estate agents vanish. The house shifts hands, but never leaves a family tree. And always, a daughter is near. Always, there is one born under a crescent moon. Always, her reflection changes first, because the pact endures. and the debt is never truly paid. The first rule of the tithing is silence. Not silence of the voice, but of intent. The girl must not know. The land demands fear, but it must be innocent. The fear prey unaware it is being stalked. Any awareness spoils the purity of the offering. If the girl suspects what is coming, the hollow takes more than just her. It takes everything. The Ellisons learned this slowly, painfully, across generations. It began as supposition, patterns and coincidences, nothing more. But by the time Clara vanished, Bartholomew had uncovered writings in the basement beneath the house. Fragments of older languages carved into stone and bone, preserved by moisture and darkness. They were not Christian, not anything from the books he knew. They spoke of the hollow as a living thing, not metaphorically, but literally, an ancient, root-bound entity slumbering beneath the pine forest, stretching tendrils upward into the very soil, feeding off sorrow, memory, and the slow burn of dread. In exchange, it gave favor, fertility, fortune, longevity, and like all ancient things, it required worship, not with song or scripture, but with flesh. Bartholomew never wrote the ritual down, not in its entirety, but pieces survive in the family journals and whispered recollections from aging staff too frightened to speak openly. It always begins on the day of the girl's 16th birthday. That morning, the house must be cleansed, not with holy water. No, the hollow hates consecration. It thrives on rot, on things left undone. Instead, the floors are washed with well water steeped in red clay. The clay is taken from a spot behind the house where nothing grows. Some call it the barren patch. Others call it the womb. Next, the girl's personal belongings are gathered. Clothing, toys, journals, anything imbued with her essence. These are placed in a circle around the attic mirror. The mirror, by this point, is no longer a passive object. It has begun to watch. Its surface pulses faintly at dusk. A heartbeat, a shimmer. The girl is kept unaware. She is celebrated downstairs, given cake, songs, gifts. The family smiles too widely. Their laughter sounds brittle, but it must appear normal. Happy. Then comes the hour of descent. Exactly at 3:06 a.m., the moment when night is at its deepest, the girl is led, sleepwalking or drugged, to the attic. She must not speak. The mirror accepts only silence. She is placed before it, barefoot, wearing a white shift stitched by her mother or grandmother, always handmade, always passed through the hands of the women in the bloodline. Candles are lit. 15. No more. No less. Then the offering begins. The matriarch, or whoever bears the title, recites the invocation. It is not spoken in English, not even in Latin. It is phonetic, syllables passed down from the etchings found in the root chamber. It translates loosely to, bound by bloom, by breath, by blood, take what is owed, leave what remains. She had survived, but something had changed. Something had been interrupted. The tide had failed. And now, the hollow would wait, not in retreat, not in defeat, but in fury, because the ritual had been broken, and the dead had doubled. After the storm, the days after Margaret's 16th birthday passed in a haze of silence and shadow. The Ellison house, once thrumming with the uneasy breath of something ancient and awake, fell still, not at peace, not healed, waiting. The attic remained locked, its door barred with rusted iron and rope soaked in river salt. No one spoke of what happened that night. Not Margaret, not Prudence, not the remaining house staff. The mirror, fractured but intact, stood undisturbed, covered, sealed, but not destroyed. No one dared touch it, because destruction meant release. And Margaret had seen what waited behind the glass. Outside, the land began to sour. The garden wilted. Chickens refused to lay. A stillborn calf was found in the pasture, its eyes turned inward, its mouth frozen mid-scream. The servants whisper things moving in the trees, figures that didn't walk but swayed. When Mabel left without warning, she left a note pinned to the kitchen wall with a butcher's knife. It doesn't want the girl. It wants the line. The house grew colder with each passing day. despite the thick heat of late summer. Frost rimmed the windows in the early morning. Mirrors fogged without reason. Every clock in the house stopped at 3:06 a.m. and refused to be wound again. Margaret, for her part, spoke only to her journal. She wrote not as a girl, but as someone who had aged decades and hours. Her entries were sparse, but grim. She described dreams that bled into waking, voices whispering from beneath her floorboards, the walls pulsing with something not quite alive. She began to sketch. Pines, faces, hands reaching from mirrors. One page simply read, "They want back what we stole." Her mother deteriorated quickly. Prudence had tried to save her daughter and had succeeded. But at what cost? Her hands trembled constantly. Her hair grayed at the roots overnight. She was found twice at the attic stairs, weeping softly, holding the old family Bible with pages torn out. One morning, Margaret woke to find her mother gone. No note, no signs of departure, only the front door standing open and, on the front step, her mother's shoes, lined neatly, pointed toward the forest. No one saw her again. There was no funeral. Margaret didn't ask for one. Instead, she closed off the house, drew the curtains, boarded the windows. She burned what she could of family records, but not all. Some pages refused to catch flame, curling but never crumbling. She abandoned the upper floors entirely. The attic remained sealed, the nursery untouched. She lived in the library and kitchen, sleeping in the parlor when the whispering got too loud. Her journal entries grew shorter, more erratic. August 14th, 1850. I still see them in reflections. Their mouths are open wider now. September 2nd, 1850. The mirror is no longer confined to the attic. It moves. October 12th, 1850. Something is building beneath the house. That fall, a series of minor earthquakes shook Clark County. Small tremors, barely strong enough to crack plaster, but enough to stir rumors. In Grove Hill, a preacher declared the hollow cursed and called for the Ellison estate to be burned to the ground. He died the next day, fell into a dry well. No one claimed to see him fall. No one heard a scream. The sheriff visited the hollow once after that. Just once. He entered through the front gate and never came out again. The search party found only his hat, resting neatly on the threshold of the house. By winter, the Ellison estate was once again abandoned. Margaret was never seen again. Whether she fled or vanished remains unclear. The house remained sealed, the doors bolted from the inside. No fires, no lights, only a growing weight in the air, like the stillness before a thunderclap. Local boys dared each other to reach the porch. None got close in the tree line. One boy claimed he heard a voice in the wind, a girl's voice, whispering over and over. I said no. By spring, no one spoke of the Ellisons anymore. The family line, as far as anyone knew, had ended. The house was left to rot. The woods grew thicker around it, closer. The roots crept through the foundation, cracking stone, swallowing the path. Animals avoided it. Birds refused to nest nearby. Even the shadows seemed to bend away. The hollow became a place of silence, of absence. Not haunted, hollowed. The story might have ended there, buried with Margaret's final pages. But stories like this don't end. They sink into the ground. And they wait, because the pact was never about one girl. It was about the bloodline. And blood has a way of resurfacing. Inheritance of shadows. They say time swallows all things, but some stories don't rot. They settle instead, deep, patient, waiting for the right crack in the surface, waiting for blood to remember. And in 2025, it remembered. My name is Elizabeth Hargrove, and until 3 months ago, I didn't know I was an Ellison. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, plain, yellowed envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, brittle at the edges, estate notification, Ellison property, Clark County, Alabama. Transference to legal next of kin, Elizabeth Hargrove, confirmed heir of Margaret Ellison. I thought it was a scam, until I looked up the names, until I found the family tree, until I saw the photographs. My grandmother never spoke of her mother, never where she came from. But the resemblance between Margaret and me was undeniable. Same jawline, same dark eyes, same streak of gray at the temple I'd had since childhood. I thought it was genetic. Maybe it still is. I took the inheritance out of curiosity, out of stubbornness. I just finalized my divorce. I had a 13-year-old daughter, Grace, and nowhere to go but forward. The house was waiting. Even before we arrived, things felt off. The GPS faltered as we approached Clark County. My phone died completely 20 minutes outside Grove Hill. The paved roads ended abruptly. The hollow wasn't on any modern map. Locals refused to give directions. An old woman at the gas station spat at my feet when I asked. "You ain't got no right," she hissed. "That place is starving." I laughed then. I don't laugh about it anymore. The house stood untouched, as if it had folded time around itself. Vines covered the facade. Windows were clouded with age. The porch sagged but held. The key I'd been sent, cold iron, heavy as a sin, fit the lock perfectly. Inside, dust clung to every surface. But not decay. No mold. No rot, like it had been waiting to exhale. Grace loved it immediately. She ran up the staircase, her voice echoing through the halls. I remember her pausing at the top landing, glancing at the attic door. "Does someone live up here already?" she asked. "No," I said. "Why?" "It's just someone standing behind that door." I looked. No one. But the doorknob was warm. The first night, we slept in the parlor. I had no intention of exploring until the light returned. But around 3 a.m., the air shifted. Cold, wet, like breathing through cotton. I woke to the sound of whispering. Not words, names. One of them was mine. The other was Grace's. I chalked it up to nerves. Jet lag. Maybe mice. But it continued the next night. And the next. And always at 3:06. Grace started sleepwalking. I'd find her at the base of the stairs each morning, eyes half-lidded, muttering nonsense. One time she said, "It likes the dark better. It can see us more clearly." Another time, she said, "We're the last." I tried to leave, packed the car, called for a tow, feigned a breakdown. The truck never came. The road behind us had cracked in the night. Fallen trees blocked the drive. The land was sealing us in. I found the journal on the 5th night. Margaret's journal. Exactly where she said it would be, in the nursery behind a false panel. I read it in one sitting. I didn't sleep after that. Grace grew quieter, paler. She said she'd made a friend in the mirror, that the girl had the same eyes, that her name was Margaret, and that she wanted to show her something. I tried to smash the mirror in the parlor. The hammer bounced off. Not a scratch. The reflection blinked. Not mine. I searched the attic, found the old mirror covered in a sheet stiff with age. Beneath it, the glass was whole again, no crack. No sign of the violence that had once split it, but something moved inside. A shape, tall, thin, watching. I remembered Margaret's warning. They want the line. I understood. Finally, the pact wasn't broken. Only paused. They'd waited for the next of kin, for the next daughter, the 7th. And now Grace was 13. 3 years. Unless I found a way to end it. But how do you break a bargain written in bone and silence? The mirror offers no answers. Only reflections I don't recognize. Last night, Grace drew a picture. The house. The pines. And something else. A figure beneath the floorboards. Arms outstretched. Mouth open wider than a face should allow. She called it the Root King. She said he was hungry again, and that he wants to meet me.